Welcome to the realm of Millenia. Be ye man, woman, child, be ye spirit, creature, or demon, be ye native migrator or invader. Welcome into the realm. I am your host, the Millennium Mailman, here today to give you the post, the intel, and help world build this realm of millennia for you. And I surely will be doing such long after you've begun to acclimate and fit in, of course. So relax, sit back, and enjoy while I get started on today's Wacky Wednesday, aka Hot Take Hump Day. This is the continuation of the hot take for the week that all these modern women, all today's modern women are furthest of the furthest things from being queens. They're the most detached thing from the word and terminology of queen. That's the devil's advocate hot take of the weekend. I'll be going down to that rabbit hole today. Yesterday, I went from the perspective of the arranged marriage aspect of king and queens. Today's will be the unarranged aspects of that king-queen relationship, where when you choose one another, but even when you get really choose one another in that unarranged aspect of king and queen, who is the prize in that relationship, it's still the aspect of duty that comes with the marriage. The queen can't just remarry because the whole marriage is an obligation, have to dissociate from. But let's get on into it. Queens don't get to just remarry. The marriage itself is an obligation. Alright, all women are the furthest thing from being queens, period. First point. Queen comes from relationship to a king. Alright? In unarranged marriage specifically, the queen is the direct prize for the king. The queen is the prize just for being her, because that king quite literally chose her. Hashtag that good American dream. Everyone's autonomy, everyone's choice. The queen in the unarranged marriage aspect does legitimately have that opportunity to say no. But ultimately, if they are a queen now, obviously that means she ended up choosing yes, assuming every single prized... I'm sorry, my handwriting is illegible. I will definitely be typing up the book and having it typed up when it gets down to it. Golly. The queen has the opportunity to say no, but ultimately they chose yes, assuming every single prized benefit while assuming up every single prize benefit of queenship at the cost of certain further liberties that every other queen would have to give up. Meaning both king and queen are each other's prize. So I kind of mentioned how the king is the queen's prize in an arranged marriage just as much as the queen is the king's prize. And here, they're both still each other's prizes. The king to the queen and the queen to the king. But here in the unarranged marriage, it's more direct, right? When this unarranged marriage aspect is the whole modern dating aspect here in 2025, right? Where in order to be in a relationship, at least here on the western front, I'm not really good with geography at the moment. My retention curve goes over a cliff every time I fall asleep. But I believe the American regions is considered the Western Front, right? The Western Hemisphere. Don't quote me on it until I get my phone and search it up. But yes, here in the Western culture, the dating aspect is all... Everyone has that autonomy to choose each other when they enter into relationships and especially into marriages. So the unarranged marriage aspect is the thing that most directly applies. So when we get into relationships here in the West, the whole concept of Are you dating? Are you together? Are you married or anything? You are quite literally each other's prize because you chose each other and or you said yes when the other party asked. So you are the other person's prize after you said yes, and they are your prize because when you said yes, you agreed to relinquishing certain liberties, or you negotiated and made up your little agreements when you became official. Like, I'll be your girlfriend or I'll be your boyfriend if this, that, and this are okay, and such and forth, so forth. But ultimately, it's between you two. So you both have the autonomy and the opportunity at all times to say no, right? But if you said yes, you are literally both each other's prizes. King to queen, queen to king. The queen, and here's the wacky Wednesday aspect of it, the queen can never remarry. Only the abandoned, the forsaken, princesses even, maybe even treasonous or conquered can remarry. But the queen herself cannot, because queens don't get to remarry. The marriage itself to the king was an obligation, right? And expounding on that, the conquered, were normally those who were captured and sullied as vases to be defiled, desecrated, broken down, and destroyed to be unalived. Further just cementing that queen can't really remarry. It's not really optional. It's not of a choice. She is no longer a queen once she's had all these things done. Once she's conquered, once she's captured, sullied, and based, and defiled, she isn't being defiled as the queen because she's got none of those things from before in the Monday video of the hot take introduction. She doesn't have the access anymore. That's how she got conquered. She doesn't have the protection or the vengeance necessarily anymore because she's captured, she's conquered, right? The queen has the access, the authority, the power, and the protection. If the queen is conquered, if she is taken, she no longer has that. So the only thing left of that queen in that case would just be the memory. Until she's rescued, until she's saved, she's not a queen until she's back. But so long as she is conquered, it's most unfortunate. But during that time, she's not a queen. And if she, in her conquered state, like say Genghis Khan just overthrew the castle, took all the women, took the queen and everything, and decided that the queen was good enough to remarry, that queen would literally have to give up her status and relinquish everything just to remarry. So she, at some point in between, is no longer the queen because the queen herself can't remarry, even conquered, right? No title carrying queen can remarry. I already explained that. The title carrying queen can only resake their, dear God, my spelling is terrible. Resake their, I think I meant forsake. The title carrying queen can only forsake their old accolades and past in order to enter in the opportunity for marriage to another king or partner. Or they accept that they, the queen, do meet a man and live on under the provision of a new husband. This is a three-parter, right? But just to immediately clarify, the queen, in order to remarry, she has to relinquish up that title, otherwise she can't get remarried to another. Queens cannot remarry. In order for someone who has had the status of a queen to remarry, they first have to give up their status and everything that tandem with the title because they got the title from a king. And a queen can't king someone else as their husband. They can only relinquish the title in order to have a new husband and acknowledge a new king. Because their past title as queen came from a different king. So she has to forsake all of her past, all her accolades, all of that, in order to have that opportunity at a relationship with another king, right? That is where that's coming from. And if she's doing that, that's option one. Option two, she has three choices if she's not trying to give up that. If she's not, doesn't necessarily want to forsake all her title and everything, her second option, in order to not relinquish a title, if she wants to remarry, her second option is to not get a king. In order to be a queen, you have to have a king. But so long as she wants to remarry, she has to remarry someone other than a king. Because in order to even keep the title of queen, she has to only have one king. She can only have that past king she's had, right? So going down the line of not marrying another king, but still wanting the provisions the king has to offer, she has three choices. Choice number one, for if she doesn't want to give up her title as queen, one, she has to acknowledge that she does in fact need a man, by wherein she would, one, be getting a new husband, one of those commoner folks who could never compare to your king of the past. Number two, live off of the subsidy and provisions of their sons, if she, or children, if she had children. Live off the subsidy of her sons. And option three, live off the filial piety of their daughter and son-in-laws for the remainder of their days. So if she doesn't want to relinquish her title as queen, she has three options. Option number one, get another husband and be perfectly fine with settling in on the fact that he's not a king and you're just going to get the hell over yourself. Option two, which kind of breaks down into three options. She doesn't want to give up her title as queen, and she decides to live off her children. That's the real last two options here. Where the first of those is living off her sons, where her sons will subsidize and provide off their extra and excess, will subsidize her living conditions for the remainder of her days, or her daughters will through their daughters' husbands and in-laws and extended family. So either way, she's really living off her children, where she can live off her sons directly and whatever paycheck they have, or she's living off her daughters and whatever paycheck whatever allowance the daughter, the princess, who has her own man or a king of her own, and thus living off the son-in-laws from that relationship. She's living off of something else, which in the second scenario still is her living off another man, be it directly or indirectly. Directly by choosing another husband, directly by choosing to live off her sons, or indirectly through living off her daughter through her sons-in-laws, and that nobility dynamic. So she can choose one of those three options, or she can choose to relinquish the title, all her aspirations and everything that was prior and applicable to her king, her initial king. Because queens don't just get to remarry. The marriage itself is an obligation attached to the term and title and name of queen. So in order to remarry, she has to give up that title in order to relatively like earn it or get it back with a new king. So that's one way of saying like, hey, my past doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter. Then you can't bring up your past. If the past doesn't matter, you can't bring up none of that stuff from the past. You are a clean slate. And the moment you mention your past is free grabs. You have to leave it in the past. You are not a queen. You are a normal woman who wants to be chosen. And who chose me and wants me to choose you. If you want to be chosen, your past means literally nothing. Your past is out the window. It's not applicable. You have to give it up in order to have the opportunity to get it back with your new king. Right? Moving on. Queens don't get to remarry. Marriage itself was the obligation with the title. And if you think of... Oh, yeah, okay. So the last real talking point I had here was the fact that since your past, if your title as a queen, if you're going into the relationship of another or trying to get into a relationship to still keep that, but you don't want to be alone or you don't want to live off your children, you're either choosing the route of getting another husband or getting another king. Either of these options here, once you start over or enter in that new or next relationships, either way, you still pretty much have to forsake your past. You have to think of what you are without the access, the nobility, the stature, the power, the authority that the last king introduced you to. Anything the last king gave you access, knowledge, things you compound on. What are you without those things? Oh yeah, so bring it back to modern day. No medieval on us, right? Modern day men and women getting into relationships. The correlation there would be men and women nowadays in the modern dating world. What do you have to offer your partner that you aren't getting from your last relationship, from your first relationship, from your first real relationship, from your first marriage, from your first partnerships? Who are you without any of the knowledge you got from those relationships, right? And if you can think of nothing, like you have nothing to offer that wasn't already put into those other relationships, then that is your answer. You are nothing to the next king. You are nothing to your new husband. Nothing but an empty space between the ears. You got an empty brain. You couldn't think of anything. And that makes you ultimately a vase to defile. If he wants to accept you and take care of you or provide you with any of his provisions, if you can't think of a single thing you have to offer that you can call yourself or display yourself as outside of the things you already gave to your last relationship, you are nothing because you couldn't even think of anything. So why would the next person, this next relationship, this next partnership, be it man, woman, or LGBTQ RS community? That was mean, that was rude. But you are nothing to your next relationship. Be you hetero or homosexual, be you sapiosexual, be you furry or beyond. You have nothing for that next relationship because you can't think of anything you are outside of all those other things, right? So if your answer was nothing, you have nothing to really offer that is different, that you have worked on and developed outside of that specific relationship. You are nothing to this next person, meaning you are the real detriment and the trauma and the barrier, building block upon this next relationship with the next person, husband, or a king partner that you wanted. It is not them. It is honestly, unfortunately, you. And you also need working on. No matter how bad they are as a partner, as a husband to you, as a king, they're a terrible king with terrible control over their kingdom. It doesn't matter, because you can't even articulate a single thing you have to offer to help with his kingdom that you haven't already given away, unfortunately. So it's going to be real hard for a king or even a husband to feel comfortable or want to choose you when there's nothing of yourself that you can choose to offer them that wasn't already taken, that wouldn't be given to him as second best scraps being left over from that last relationship. So you need to figure out that answer and make sure that answer isn't nothing when you're getting into the next relationship. Otherwise, you still need to be working through some things. You yourself have healing to work on. And if you do get into a relationship, and there's definitely going to be a number of men and kings and husbands who would love to work through those problems with you. But recognize, if they're choosing to go through those things, that's just a light on how exceptional they are, per se. Right? They're exceptional and beyond. Right? But that's not a downset if a husband or partner doesn't want to make that choice to suffer necessarily, right? So if your partner acknowledges that you can't articulate what you're good for, and they say, because you have no answer, I have no desire to say yes to a relationship and choosing a relationship with you, right? It's not their fault, and you can't make it their problem that you have nothing to offer to help yourself get chosen, because one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So if any man or husband or next king does care to choose you despite your inability to be chosen, that's more so your Cinderella story. You are broken, and he's willing to fix it. But you can't pressure other people. You can't shame and guilt other kings and other men and into being your husband, and because they don't feel they are capable or have the desire to fix something broken, right? You're broken. You still need healing. You need reforging and recrafting. You need to find that answer, because the answer should not be nothing. You should not be just able to ignorantly label yourself as nothing. Because if you can't answer the question of who you are and what you have to offer your husband, your king, to make you the queen that you want to be and stay being or be again, if you can't have an answer as to who you are outside of the things that were already offered to another, it's not their fault, it's you. The problem isn't your partner, it's unfortunately you. The answer is you. Let's get on to this last piece here. But yes, that's a Freudian slip. A Freudian slip. Sigmund and Freud. Freudian slip. It's a projection of exactly what you think you are when all you say is nothing. You believe that you are nothing without a man, that last man. Nothing. You feel like you of yourself are a waste, leftovers, just a vase, you're unfinished. You're effectively useless when you say, or you're nothing when you can't think of anything you possibly are outside of that relationship. That's all you said. Where you should have been thinking along the lines that what I am to my new king, to my next husband, is I'm a motivator. I'm a prize. I'm dependable. I'm learning. I'm observant. I'm capable. I'm chosen. I'm reliable. I'm a reliable name to be counted on. I am desirable. Right? Those are all things you can be without that can't necessarily be given to another person. The name you have being a reliable one to be counted on. You can be counted on. You're reliable. You're capable. You're competent. You're dependable. You're desirable. You're teachable. You're coachable. You're learnable. You're observant. You're a motivator. You are prized. Those are all things that you can have and put on display and acknowledge and articulate to your next partner. And that's just a few things that you could say you bring to the table. Competency, reliability, confidence, motivation, dependability, your observant nature, fertility in some cases, right? These are all things you still have that you can project on. But so long as you say nothing or don't say anything at all, you're unfortunately giving that Freudian slip of projection that all you have for that next person is nothing. And regardless of whether we can always spot it from a distance, right? Regardless of how easy we're able to articulate those things, people catch up on that. People easily catch up on the fact that, hey, they can't say, they're not anything. They're nothing. What's she bring to the table? Nothing. She hasn't said anything worthwhile. She's got a ton of degrees that she's not going to do anything with because she wants to be a stay-at-home and wants me to give her an allowance on top of it. She can't cook, she can't clean, she wants the ring, she just wants to be a liability, she wants to be dependent. And I'm not in a place right now that I can really do that for her. So I want her to have the best she possibly can. She wants someone who can do all those things without being reliable, competent, capable of assisting and motivating and pushing, being able to properly push me to be better or do anything. She's not bringing anything to the table. Then, most unfortunately, I'm not the one for her and she is not the one for me, right? It's that Freudian slip that everyone is letting bypass them and go on by, right? And that itself is a rather big, pitiful thing, because you never want to be that. You never want to be so low or so inarticulatable. Articulable, right? You can't talk. I can't talk either. You never want to be that person who can't articulate some of your finest qualities, right? Because when you can't articulate anything you're good at or anything you're good for, to the layman, or at least anyone on the outside, if you can't articulate anything you're good for, you're unfortunately good for nothing. Oh, that's a slow burn. That's a slow burn. But here nor there, right? That's not my personal opinion. That's just the devil advocate talking. That's just the devil's advocate talking, right? That's all the thoughts and comments from the devil's advocate. It was nice being here with you and articulating that for you. And I love my job as your Millennium mailman, yes. But hey, that's just me, your Millennium mailman here today. I hope you enjoyed the post and the intel I delivered to you from my realm to yours. Leave a like if you liked what I had to say. Leave a comment if you have any further thoughts, commentary, or opinions you'd like to share that I can address on a Q&A video on a Millennium Mailman Monday. And subscribe in order to push me to finish writing and getting my book published. Subscribe and click the bell button if you actually want to see more of these terrible videos that I am posting on this channel. But just subscribing alone, regardless of whether or not you see any more videos, lets me know that you actually are looking forward to me publishing my book called Millenia, because that's what Just Channel's all about, the realm of Millenia. I think I got all the points here. Wacky Wednesday. Queens don't get to remarry because marriage itself was an obligation with the title of queen.